You have no idea what you've just started. Emily? Brooke's voice vibrated with barely contained fury, her hand tightening around the kitchen knife until her knuckles turned white, the blade catching the fluorescent light and sending a sharp glint across the marble countertop. My pulse slammed into my ears so hard I couldn't hear the hum of the fridge anymore. The kitchen smelled of roasted garlic and lemon zest, but under it all was something electric, a tension crackling in the air like a thunderstorm about to hit. Brooke's hair hung in wild waves around her flushed face, her breath coming fast, eyes darting as though even she couldn't quite believe how far she'd let herself spiral. One step closer, and the knife's point hovered inches from my ribs. Brooke, put it down. I managed, my voice low, hands raised like I was talking someone off a ledge. She let out a shaky laugh, cold and sharp. Don't act innocent. You've always been in my way. Always. A tremor ran through me, because for a fraction of a second, I saw it in her eyes. She could actually do it. A few hours earlier, this same kitchen was filled with the rhythmic chop of onions on the cutting board, the smell of garlic hissing in hot oil. Mom, humming along to some old country song on the radio, had flour dusted across her jeans. Dad had sat half watching TV, half checking scores on his phone, every few minutes calling out random sports stats to no one in particular. On the surface, it all looked so normal. Except in the Carson household, normal was a fragile illusion, a thin layer of paint over years of cracks. My name is Emily Carson. I'm 23, a part-time artist hustling between classes and shifts at a tiny studio in downtown Denver. I've spent my entire life navigating a family where love is transactional. Apologies never come without strings, and secrets are currency. Brooke, my older sister by 2 years, used to be the star of this family. Homecoming queen, hair always glossy under the Friday night lights. The kind of girl who could make people follow her anywhere. Now she's 25, jobless, living in our childhood home like a queen without a kingdom, bitterness leaking out of her every pore. Mom, Linda Carson, lives in denial so deep she could dig her own zip code, always saying, "We're a family. We don't air our dirty laundry." Dad, Rick, is the human embodiment of silence, always around but never really present, like he's living life with the volume turned all the way down. And me? I'm the girl who learned to keep her head down. Who's been picking up the pieces every time Brooke lit her world on fire and expected me to sweep up the ashes without a word. Except tonight, something had snapped, because as I stared at my sister gripping a knife, screaming accusations I didn't even understand yet, I knew this wasn't just another Carson family meltdown. This was the start of a war, and I was done pretending I didn't know how to fight. Brooke slammed the knife onto the countertop so violently that a spoon nearby clattered off and spun across the tile, the ringing metallic sound cutting through the silence like a gunshot. She leaned forward, hair hanging around her face, her breath ragged as she glared at me with eyes that seemed more animal than human. "Where the hell did you put it? Emily," she hissed, each word dripping venom. "Don't stand there acting clueless." I blinked, swallowing hard. My mouth felt dry as dust. "I don't know what you're talking about, Brooke." Her laugh was sharp, humorless, almost a bark. She shoved the bar stool out of the way, its legs screeching on the tile like fingernails on glass. She lunged toward me, grabbing the front of my t-shirt in both fists, pulling me so close I could see the smudges of mascara beneath her eyes. "The hard drive. Emily, the one that was in my closet, the one that has everything on it." She spat the words like they burned her tongue. I struggled to pull away, but her grip was iron. I didn't take anything. Brooke's eyes were wild, darting around the kitchen as if looking for someone else to confirm her story. Mom stood frozen by the stove, clutching a wooden spoon so tightly her knuckles had gone ghost white. Dad hovered in the doorway, shoulders hunched, eyes flicking between us, but refusing to land anywhere for too long. Typical. Brooke snapped her head toward them. Voice shrill. She's lying. You know she's lying. She's jealous of me. She always has been. A sharp, bitter laugh burst out of me. Jealous. Of what, Brooke? The fact that you can't keep a job, that you keep burning bridges and expecting everyone else to rebuild them for you. Her eyes narrowed to slits. Don't pretend you're better than me, Emily. You've always been the little victim, always running to Mom and Dad crying about how unfair life is. Guess what? The world doesn't care about your sob story. She shoved me backward, hard. My back hit the fridge door with a metallic thunk that rattled the magnets, and photos stuck there. Pictures of forced smiles at Christmas. Snapshots of a family pretending to be something we never really were. Pain shot through my shoulder. I winced, blinking back tears, determined not to give her the satisfaction. Brooke loomed over me, voice lowering to a harsh whisper. You think you're some innocent little artist. You have no idea what you've just gotten yourself into. That hard drive has records, contacts, things I can't afford to let anyone see. If it gets out, I'm done. My stomach flipped. Contacts records. What the hell was on that drive? Mom finally found her voice, trembling. Emily, if you did take it, just, please, give it back. Let's not turn this into something bigger. I turned on her, my voice cracking. I didn't take it. But Mom just shook her head, her eyes wet and pleading. Sweetheart, don't do this to your sister. A hollow laugh tore out of my chest. I'm not the one doing anything to her. She's the one dragging me into her mess. Brooke threw her arms up. Oh my God, listen to her acting like she's some hero. You've always wanted to be the victim. Emily, you love it. It's the only way you get attention. Dad finally spoke up, his voice rough and exhausted. That's enough. Both of you. We're not doing this right now. But Brooke ignored him completely. She stabbed a finger toward me. If you ruin this for me, Emily, if you even breathe a word about what's on that drive, I swear, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. My vision blurred as my eyes filled with angry tears. And in that moment, with my mother refusing to look me in the eye and my father retreating into silence, I felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my entire life. But buried beneath the fear, another feeling ignited. Rage. Pure and righteous. Because I realized something I should have known years ago. Brooke wasn't the only one who could destroy a life. So could I. I fled down the hallway, my pulse hammering so loud it drowned out the creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. My shoulder throbbed from where Brooke had slammed me into the fridge, each step sending sharp stabs of pain through my chest. The bathroom door clicked shut behind me, and I twisted the lock with shaking fingers. I pressed my palms against the cool porcelain sink and stared at my reflection under the harsh glow of the vanity lights. My face looked pale, streaked with mascara and tears. My hair clung to the sweat on my temples. I looked like someone who'd just survived a car crash. I drew in a ragged breath, but it caught in my throat, splintering into a sob I couldn't swallow back down. Suddenly my knees buckled. I dropped to the floor beside the tub, clutching my arms around myself so tightly it felt like I could hold my body together if I just squeezed hard enough. Silent sobs shook me as the weight of everything crashed over me all at once. Brooke screaming, Mom telling me not to ruin the family, Dad looking at me like I was an inconvenience instead of his daughter. All of it pounding in my skull, echoing like church bells. It wasn't just tonight. It was every night. All the years of living in this house where my existence seemed like an apology, where I was always the problem, always too sensitive, always making things bigger than they were. I remembered being 15, crying into my pillow, because Brooke had stolen the necklace Grandma left me, and Mom told me it was just stuff. I remembered standing in the backyard at 16, watching my sister laugh with the boy I'd been secretly in love with, knowing she'd whispered lies to him until he hated me. I remembered birthdays that turned into battlefields, holidays that ended in slammed doors, and my parents pretending nothing happened the next day. My vision blurred as hot tears spilled over again, burning trails down my cheeks. For so long, I'd convinced myself I was the problem, that if I just tried harder, stayed quieter, kept the peace, they'd finally see me. But no matter what I did, I was invisible, expendable, disposable. I drew in a shaky breath, tasting salt and bitterness on my tongue. And then, like a tiny spark flicking to life in the dark, something inside me shifted. I thought about Brooke's eyes when she'd screamed about the hard drive. Contacts, records, things that could destroy her. And suddenly I understood. Brooke wasn't terrified because she thought I'd taken her stuff. She was terrified because she knew I might tell the truth. About her. About all of them. I forced myself to my feet, grabbing the hand towel and scrubbing at my face. My reflection stared back at me, red-eyed and trembling. But there was something new in her eyes. Steel. Resolve, I whispered to myself, barely louder than a breath. No more hiding. The bruises on my arms were turning from angry red to deep purple. I pulled up my shirt and winced as I spotted the ugly marks blooming across my ribcage. Proof. I snapped photos of the bruises, recorded a voice memo describing everything Brooke had done, saved it all to a cloud drive. And then I thought about that hard drive Brooke was so desperate to protect. Financial records, contacts, evidence. Something told me the truth was even uglier than I imagined. I lowered my phone, a chill crawling over my skin. For the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't just surviving my family anymore. I was preparing for war. And this time, I was going to be the one who decided how the story ended. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the blinds in sharp, bright stripes, falling across my bed like prison bars. I lay staring at the ceiling, my body heavy as stone, eyes swollen from crying. My phone lay on the pillow beside me. The notifications blinked in silent rhythm, but I couldn't bring myself to check them. I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore, but the thought of standing up to Brooke alone made my stomach twist into knots. And then, a name flashed into my mind so suddenly, it made me suck in a sharp breath. Sophia Miller! I hadn't spoken to her in years. We'd been inseparable in high school, bonded over late-night study sessions and shared secrets in the bleachers while Brooke spread rumors about me 2 rows down. Sophia had always been the one person who saw through the Carson family mask. I remembered hearing she'd gone to law school, that she'd built a reputation for herself as a fierce attorney, the kind who wouldn't back down even if the odds were stacked against her. My heart started pounding. Could I really drag her into this chaos? I scrolled through my contacts until I found her name. My finger hovered over the call button, trembling. Then I thought of Brooke's voice snarling, "You'll regret this for the rest of your life." And I pressed call. Sophia answered on the second ring. Emily. Her voice was warm and familiar, tinged with surprise. Oh my God, is that really you? A lump rose in my throat so fast I couldn't speak at first. Yeah, it's me, I croaked. You sound off. Are you okay? I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to hold myself together. Can you meet me? I need help. Name the place, she said without hesitation. An hour later, we sat across from each other at a little coffee shop in downtown Denver, the walls covered in exposed brick and mismatched art prints. The bitter scent of espresso and cinnamon hung in the air, and my hands were wrapped tight around my paper cup as if it might keep me from falling apart. Sophia looked older, sharper somehow, her dark hair cut into a sleek bob, but the moment she reached across the table and squeezed my hand, it was like no time had passed at all. "Talk to me, so I did—" I poured it all out in a shaking voice, the fight in the kitchen. Brooke's threats, the bruises blossoming across my skin, the mysterious hard drive filled with secrets. Sophia listened without interrupting, her eyes narrowing in focused intensity. Fingers tapping out a silent rhythm on her coffee cup. When I finally trailed off, she leaned forward. "Emily, listen carefully. You're in deeper than you realize. If Brooke is mixed up in fraud or hiding illegal activities, you need protection. You have to document everything. Keep duplicates of files. Back them up where she can't reach them." "I don't have money for lawyers." "Soph," I whispered. A small smile tugged at her lips, fierce and determined. "Lucky for you, you've got me, and I'm very good at my job." A shaky laugh escaped me, part relief, part disbelief. Sophia squeezed my hand again. "We're going to get you out of this. You deserve to live without looking over your shoulder." Tears welled in my eyes, but this time they weren't just from fear. They were because for the first time, I didn't feel alone. I had an ally, and with Sophia in my corner, maybe I finally had a fighting chance. The house was quiet when I walked in that afternoon. The kind of quiet that felt loaded, like the pause right before a thunderclap. I slipped off my shoes, every step on the hardwood floor echoing like a warning shot. I barely made it past the hallway when Brooke appeared at the other end, leaning against the wall with her arms crossed, eyes narrowed to slits. Her voice was soft, almost casual. "Where have you been, Emily?" My stomach clenched. "Out," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Out." She pushed away from the wall, taking slow, deliberate steps toward me. "Funny. I checked your room. Your laptop's gone. Your sketchbooks, too. You planning on running away? Or maybe handing over my business to someone?" My throat tightened. "I'm not doing anything to you, Brooke." Brooke let out a brittle laugh. "Liar." She suddenly lunged, grabbing my arm so hard I gasped. Her nails dug into my skin like claws. "Tell me who you've been talking to. Who knows about the drive?" "Emily." Mom's voice floated in from the kitchen, tremulous. "Girls, please, not again." Brooke's eyes snapped toward her. "Stay out of it." Mom. Then back to me, voice dropping to a hiss. "If you're trying to destroy me, I swear to God, I will end you." Dad stepped out from the living room, his face drawn. "Brooke, let go of your sister." But Brooke didn't move. Instead, she shoved me so hard my back slammed into the hallway console table, sending a ceramic vase crashing to the floor in a spray of water and shattered glass. I winced, clutching my ribs, pain shooting through me. Brooke was breathing hard, eyes wide and glassy. "I've given up everything for this shot. You think I'm going to let you ruin it because you can't mind your own damn business?" I glared at her. "You mean the fraud, the fake investment deals your boyfriend's running through that startup, the lies you've fed everyone while stealing from Mom and Dad." Brooke's face went sheet white. Mom gasped. "Emily, what are you talking about?" Brooke spun on her. "She's lying." I swallowed hard, lifting my phone. "No, I'm not." I tapped the screen and the audio played loud enough for the entire room to hear. Mom's voice crackled from the recording. "Don't call the cops. Emily, it'll ruin Brooke's future." Brooke lunged for the phone, but Dad grabbed her arms. She shrieked, thrashing in his grip. "Let go of me." "She's lying. She's trying to ruin my life." Dad's voice was gravel. "Brooke, enough." Mom burst into tears. "Emily, please, stop this. We're family. We can fix this." I stared at her, shaking all over. Family, family. Where was family when Brooke broke my rib? When she stole from me. When you told me to shut up because her future was more important than my safety. Brooke shrieked. I didn't mean to. I cut her off. No, you meant every damn bit of it. She screamed and grabbed a lamp off the side table, hurling it across the room. It exploded against the wall, shards skittering across the floor. Dad wrestled her back again, voice breaking. Brooke, stop! Brooke was crying now, ugly sobs racking her shoulders. You don't understand. If they find out, I'll go to prison. You're my sister. Emily, you're supposed to protect me. My voice dropped to a cold whisper. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided your secrets were worth more than my life. Mom reached for me, desperation etched into every line of her face. Please, Emily, we can handle this quietly. Don't ruin your sister's life. I jerked back. No, I'm not protecting her anymore. Or you. Brooke let out a strangled scream. I hate you! I stared at her, unblinking. Funny. I stopped hating you the second I realized I didn't owe you anything. The silence that fell over the room was total. The air thick with things unsaid, and truths too heavy to ignore. And in that silence, for the first time, I felt powerful. Brooke collapsed into a heap on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Mom knelt beside her, stroking her hair, whispering useless comforts. Dad just stood there, his hands trembling at his sides, staring at me like he'd never really seen me before. I stepped around the broken glass and said, quietly but firmly, I'm done living like a hostage in my own home. And I meant every word. The house stayed silent after the explosion in the hallway, as if the walls themselves were too afraid to breathe. For days, no one said much beyond the bare minimum. Mom moved around the kitchen like a ghost, wiping the same countertop over and over until her palms squeaked on the marble. Dad kept disappearing into the garage, tinkering with tools he'd never once used before. Brooke barricaded herself in her bedroom, the door slamming shut any time I passed by. But I wasn't hiding anymore. I spent my hours gathering everything Sophia had told me to collect: bank statements, screenshots, text messages from Mom asking me for grocery money that somehow turned into Brooke's hair extensions or spa trips. I sat at the dining table, my laptop open, my fingers trembling as I composed the email. Subject: candidate concerns, Brooke Carson. I stared at the blinking cursor for what felt like hours. Then I remembered the bruises on my ribs, the look in Brooke's eyes when she screamed she'd end me. And I hit send. I attached the medical report from urgent care. Photos of my bruises, taken in the bathroom mirror under flickering lights. Audio recordings of Mom pleading with me not to involve the police. Screenshots of Brooke bragging in texts about making up internship hours to look better on her resume. By the next day, an email arrived from the HR director of the publishing company Brooke was hoping to join. They thanked me for my courage. They informed me that Brooke was being permanently removed from their candidate pool, and that they'd be notifying her former university's ethics committee about falsified records. My fingers hovered over the trackpad as I read the words again and again. My chest felt light, as if all the weight I'd been carrying for years was finally lifting, piece by piece. But I wasn't finished. Sophia arranged for me to come into her office. The place was sleek and modern, sunlight pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows, reflecting off polished wood and chrome. She wore a crisp black blazer and sat across from me, eyes sharp and focused. She slid a thick folder across the table. I've been reviewing the documents you sent, she said. Brooke's situation fits the pattern of financial fraud, and your mother's repeated borrowing without repayment can be classified as financial abuse. We can go after both civilly, possibly criminally. I swallowed, feeling my heart pound so loud it thudded in my ears. Soph, I can't afford a lawsuit. I barely have enough to cover rent. Sophia's lips curled into a small, determined smile. Lucky for you, I take on pro bono cases for people I believe in. And Emily, I believe in you. My eyes blurred with tears. We spent hours combing through every bank transfer, every Venmo memo labeled family emergency, every wire Mom had asked me to send that vanished into Brooke's endless disasters. Sophia helped me draft a demand letter seeking repayment for nearly $20,000 Mom had siphoned from me since I was 18. I walked out of the law office shaking from head to toe. But it wasn't fear. This time it was adrenaline. When I got home, I pulled out the battered manila envelope Grandpa had left me. The one Mom always claimed she'd misplaced. Inside were the original documents proving the house belonged to me. Emily Carson, sole owner. A sense of calm washed over me. So deep it felt like standing on solid ground for the first time in my life. That night, under the quiet hum of the kitchen light, I printed out the medical report and placed it on the counter. Then I laid the eviction notice right beside it. Mom and Dad found it the next morning. I'll never forget the look on Mom's face, confusion, then dawning horror, then tears spilling down her cheeks. "You can't do this. Emily," she whispered, voice trembling. "This is our home." I stared her down, voice like steel. "No, Mom, it's my home, and I'm done living in fear." And for the first time, I meant every word. Brooke found the papers first. She came storming into the living room, waving the eviction notice above her head like a battle flag, eyes wild, hair tangled around her face. "You think you can kick us out?" "Emily," she shrieked, voice cracking. "This is our house." Mom trailed behind her, cheeks blotchy, eyes already shiny with tears. "Emily, please, don't do this. We're family. We can work this out." I stood near the windows, arms crossed over my chest, feeling the weight of the sun on my back. It stopped being our house the minute you both made me the villain in my own life. I'm done living like this. Brooke slammed the papers down on the coffee table so hard the glass rattled. "You think you're better than me? That you're some hero for ruining my life? Newsflash, you'll always be the pathetic little sister living in my shadow." I tilted my head, watching her rage. Funny, considering you're the one about to be homeless. Her mouth dropped open. She looked at Mom for support, but Mom was shaking, barely holding herself together. "Emily, where are we supposed to go?" Mom whispered, her voice so small it almost didn't sound like her. "That's not my problem anymore." My voice came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't take it back. Dad appeared at the edge of the room, eyes bloodshot, hands shoved into his pockets. He looked at me like he wanted to say something, but the words never came. Brooke let out a scream so primal it sent shivers down my spine. She lunged at me, but Dad finally grabbed her, dragging her back as she kicked and fought. "Let me go. She's ruining everything." I didn't even flinch. Mom fell to her knees, sobbing into her hands. "Emily, please. We're your family. We raised you." "You raised me to believe love was a transaction." I snapped. That pain was my fault. That silence was safer than truth. Well, I'm done living like that. Brooke tore free of Dad's grip long enough to spit out. "I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family." I stared straight into her eyes. "No, Brooke, you destroyed it. I'm just finally telling the truth." For a moment, the room seemed suspended in time. Then Brooke pushed past Dad, grabbing 2 garbage bags stuffed with clothes and makeup. She stomped toward the door, slamming her shoulder into mine as she passed. "I'll be back. You'll see. You'll need me one day." "Not anymore," I said quietly. Mom rose from the floor, trembling, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Your grandfather would be ashamed of you, Emily." I let out a bitter laugh. "No, Mom. He'd be proud. He left this house to me for a reason. He knew how this would all end." Dad stayed silent, staring at the floor as if willing it to swallow him whole. Outside, the engine of the U-Haul rumbled to life. Brooke slammed the back door shut, rage burning in her eyes, even as tears tracked down her cheeks. Mom climbed in after her, still sobbing. Dad followed, moving like an old man weighed down by regret. And then they were gone. The silence that fell over the house was immense. I stood alone in the middle of the living room, listening to the faint echo of my own heartbeat. No yelling, no crashing dishes, no Brooke screaming threats, just quiet, and it was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. Over the next few days, I transformed the house piece by piece. I scrubbed the walls until my arms ached. I painted the living room a soft, airy white, peeling away the old colors that felt soaked in resentment. I threw out every broken piece of furniture, every chipped mug Brooke used to throw across the room. And then I opened the door to Brooke's old bedroom. Sunlight spilled across the floor, illuminating the scars on the walls where picture frames once hung. I took a deep breath, and I turned that room into my art studio. Canvas after canvas lined the walls. The scent of fresh paint filled the space, bright and alive. For the first time, my art wasn't something I hid in sketchbooks under my bed. It was out in the open, and so was I. I woke up every morning to the sun streaming through my windows, no longer bracing for chaos. And I realized I didn't just survive my family, I'd freed myself from them, once and for all. A week after they left, I stood in my new studio, paintbrush in hand, staring at the canvas where colors bled and blended into something bold and entirely mine. The morning light poured through the windows in soft gold ribbons, dancing across the wood floor, warming my bare feet. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel like a prison. It felt like home. I set my brush down and wiped my hands on my jeans, feeling the throb of tired muscles and the steady thump of my heartbeat. The quiet wasn't empty anymore. It was full of possibility. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who flinched at footsteps in the hallway, the one who swallowed her words, who let her sister's rage define every moment of her life, the one who thought love meant keeping secrets, even if it cost you everything. I'd mourned her, in a way, but I wasn't her anymore. Because here's the truth I've learned. The thing nobody ever tells you. Family can be your home, or it can be your cage. Loyalty is beautiful, until it becomes the chains you wrap around your own throat. And silence doesn't protect you. It only shields the people who hurt you. I used to believe choosing myself meant I was selfish. Now I know it means I'm finally free. I glanced around the studio, at the paintings leaning against the walls, at the sketches taped to every surface. My phone chimed from the windowsill. I picked it up, breath catching as I read the subject line flashing across the screen. Gallery Invitation, Colorado Institute of Arts. My hand flew to my mouth. A laugh burst out of me, raw and bright, and a little disbelieving. All those nights I spent crying into my pillow. All those days I thought my life would never be more than survival. I'd built something beautiful from the ashes. And for the first time, I wasn't hiding who I was. A memory flickered in my mind, Brooke screaming at me, "You're ruining everything!" But she was wrong. I hadn't ruined anything. I'd saved myself. And I'd learned that sometimes you have to burn the old life down to build the one you deserve. If anyone listening to this is still stuck in a house full of secrets, if you're terrified that speaking up will destroy everything, listen to me. It's okay to choose yourself. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to demand a life that doesn't hurt. You're not dramatic. You're not selfish. You're not crazy. You're brave. I pressed my hand over my heart, feeling the steady rhythm beneath my ribs, and I whispered, softly but firmly, "This time, I get to write the ending." Then I picked up my brush. and started painting my future.